Good evening, everyone. I hope we've all had a very wonderful weekend. Without wasting much of our time, I'll just love us to get started into and we've themed today's class for. So, one of the questions that and what's it called people gets to ask is what makes a good design. So, when I was putting together the class, I was imagining the questions that people tend to ask, in the course of and what's it called my journey as a designer in the course of the experiences I've had when people want to get started into designing and then they want to ask, okay, how can I be able to make a good design? And then you look at some designs, you see so many and what's it called feedback that you have, and then you wish you can be able to just pour out your heart to explain and what initially makes a good design beyond the visual aesthetics of the design, beyond the and what's it called the way you've put together all the elements. There are some things that you need to make sure that you know in terms of what makes a good design. So that is what the class is for. So the first question I will always ask is that if your design looks good but doesn't work, is it still good? So that's a question we should ask. If your design looks, it looks good, but it doesn't work. When you say a design looks good, maybe probably you have a design that is, what's it called, aesthetically pleasing. The design looks, good to you, but, it does not fulfill the purpose of why it was created. So the question you should now ask yourself is that, is it still good when it does not work? So I collated this and what's it called designs together to just give you an idea. It says a good design is creativity with purpose, clear, intentional, and unforgettable. So a good design is creativity with purpose. So some people might tend to focus on creativity much more than the purpose. The purpose is to the reason why the design was initially created. So these two samples, one is from AVM and the other is from Via Master Design. So you have to first think about what initially is the purpose of the design you are working on. So that will give you a direction, that will give you an idea towards the expectation, towards how you need to make your research, towards what and what needs to be there and what needs not to be there. So it has to be clear, you have to be intentional, and the design has to be unforgettable, that when people see the design they can be able to remember that, oh, I saw this design, it actually works for me, and the reason has to be answered in their heart because it fulfilled the purpose that the design was initially created for. So, and this takes us to the next thing, which is very crucial in designing. I call it the three pillars of good of a good design. So the three pillars of a good design. So sorry, it's supposed to be the three pillars of a good design. So the three pillars of a good design is, one is clarity, the second is purpose, the third is emotion. And when we mean clarity, the message is instantly understood. So when someone sees your design, they must be able to quickly understand what you are communicating visually, in the ways you put your typography together, in your hierarchy, in your color usage, in your imagery. There has to be clarity. So the second thing is purpose. As I said earlier, it has to solve the problem it was made for. So, sometimes as a designer, you might focus on, okay, I want this design to be best. I want the design to look so much good. You understand the, and what's it called? The whole and aspect of putting together the element. You can be able to put your shapes together. You can put your and colors together. But how can you be able to bring all these things together to be able to solve the problem it was initially made for? So then it brings us to the emotion. It says it connects and lingers in memory. So every design you make has to be memorable. It has to connect in a way that it's and draws the emotion of your audience, of your target audience, or the person that the design is initially made to solve their problem. as what's it called? Yeah, this aspect of UI UX design, and UI has to do with the user interface, while the UX has to do with user experience. Some designers initially focus on the user and UI, which is the user interface. So there has to be the back end where you think about the user experience, the experience of the people that are going to be using the design. Is this design I'm making going to, solve their problem? Is this design going to be understood by the people that I'm sending this design to? The people that this design is meant for, the people that this design, are targeted towards, is when they see this design, will it solve the problem they have? Is it, what's it called, clear enough to be understood? Does it pass the right emotion? So that's why it's called the three pillars, because it's old fame, the old design that you are passing out. It's old fame, the old design that you are trying to create. The purpose and emotion works hand in hand together to be able to make sure that you are delivering, and what's it called, the best when you are sending out your design. So we are going to be taking a look one after the other. So the first we are taking a look is the first pillar, which is clarity. If you look at this design on the left hand side, you can see that it is, what's it called? It is just, everything is just there. You have the different colors, you have the red, you have yellow, you have blue, you have black, everything, just there, right? There's no kind of proper what's it called? What should I say? There's no proper clarity. There's no proper white space. You understand? In able to be able to make the design breathe, you see different typography plain. You can see the use of what's it called? Sans serif. Serif is doing its own different elements together that your eyes is jumping from one place to the other. So if your design does not pass across the right message, immediately the person looks at your design. Then you have to think about what you have already done. So, and if you look at this design on the right hand side, it's simple. You can see the hierarchy. It says you will read this first because it is bold. It calls attention. So that is the first message the designer is trying to make you to see and understand when you look at the design. What is the major point? What do you want your audience to see or to first see when they look at your design? So that is where you think about the hierarchy. Which one has to be bigger? Which one has to be smaller? Do you understand? Which one should then now, fall back on after they have seen the heading, they have seen the sub heading, and then they now have the body text? So that's where you have to now think about the hierarchies of the design, the clarity where you bring about what people has to understand when they see your design. So you see that it says you will read this first, and then it follows, and then you will read this line next. You look at the one at the right hand side below. You see, you probably read this before the paragraph. Why? Because that text was bolded. You understand? So it's much more. It has more weight than the and what's it called, the body text, which reads, you will go back to read this body copy if you want to know more. So it gives you the hierarchy, the flow of what the designer has, the aim of the design, the purpose of how the flow of the design should be. You go from this to this and to that. So when you are making your design, these are all what should be and what's it called, coming to your mind, that what they want to, what the and what's it called, the audience to be able to read first, what should follow, and what should follow next. So that will now determine where you need to lay emphasis on your design. So I'm going to go to the next point, the pillar two, it's the purpose. So it says, ask the a question you should ask, why does this exist? Why does this exist? And design from that answer. So that comes with the purpose. So the question you ask yourself when you are giving a brief is that, why does this exist? You understand? And then you now start designing from after understanding that, okay, this is why this design is initially created. Do you understand? This is why it should be created. So there's one thing that is hidden, what's it called, hidden in this design. So which is, you say that we have the sonic booms, you understand, which is the and what's it called, main and what's it called, main text that people, it wants you to see the sonic boom live. You understand? Then you have What follows is the venue. You have the grand auditorium. So you see that you struggle really hard to see, as fine as this design is, you struggle really hard to find the dates and the location of where the event is holding. So now the person has left out the fact that why does this design exist? Yes, a what's it called? A show is coming up that is going to be live. Where is it happening? It's happening at the Grand Auditorium. When and where? The part that has to now come to the audience mind that, okay, I'm interested. This design is attractive enough for me to say, yes, I want to come and watch this show. So what information do I need to now follow next? The information that's supposed to follow next is now really small. So that means that as fine as this design is, it does not work. Because the information, the CTA, which is the call to action that is meant to be seen for the, and what's it called, for the target audience to be able to understand their CTA and to be able to take action, all those texts are barely visible. You can hardly read them. So that is when you have to ask yourself the question, why does this design initially exist? And once you understand that part, then you can be able to now know what and what you need to lay emphasis on your design. So we are going to the next point, which is pillar 3, which is emotion. So I made this two designs. So it says, and if you look at the first design at the left hand side, it says design makes people feel. You can see how bold it is. You can feel the grunginess. And then you look at the design on the right hand side, it says design makes people feel. So design makes people feel. So you know, if you look at the design now, you see that these both designs are same, and what's it called, same message but different emotion. Design makes people feel, but it has different emotion because the typography and the color used in the designs are different. So that is how you make use of your colors to tell a story, to, you know, evoke emotion. So you can see that the design at the right hand side is playful. You understand? It's playful. So, and there's a breakdown. If you look at the design on the left hand side, it's you know, the emotion evoked edgy, serious, intense. So you look at the supporting points, the colors for the what's it called, design on the left hand side is emotion, black and red. Urgency, it shows urgency, power, intensity. So the typography, tone of voice, is it bold sans serif, straight, strong lines, communicates authority and seriousness. So that is the emotion I was passing across when I was making the design on the left hand side. So when you look at the imagery, which is the background, and which I, you know, and used, it is textured and it feels raw and gritty, enhancing the boldness. So everything that you use in your design pass a message, and when your design is viewed as a whole, you understand, it pass a particular message to the audience. If you look at the design on the right hand side, it says it's playful, it's energetic, it's fun. So if you look at the supporting points, the colors, we have the pink and yellow, which evokes joy, excitement, youthful energy. So the typography, tone of voice, bold, titled, playful fonts, and it communicates movement and friendliness. So you can see that it's playful, unlike the one that looks serious. This is playful. So when you are designing for maybe an audience, maybe let's say for instance the design has to depict joy, you start thinking about what colors, what typography, what image should you use in your design that can be able to communicate. Of course, you're going to be using imagery, play with so many things, but everything that you use in your design as a whole must communicate same message. Your typography, your colors, and what's it called, and your background must communicate one message. You cannot have, you know, too many and what's it called, communication happening in your design, except if there's another and what's it called, aim towards the design you are making. So every design that you make, every typography you use, every color you use must be intentional. So use colors, imagery, and typography intentionally. Don't just say you want to make a design, you want to make a flyer design, and then you just start trying different typography out, you know, and then seeing the one that works. Yes, I was also once in that same show as well. When, you know, you want to make design, you are just looking for fanciness of the fonts. You don't really care. It's not as if you don't even care. You don't know. You understand? So there's a what's it called? There's a part where you know, and there's a part where you don't know. So you really don't know. You just want to find a nice typeface or a nice font that works for the design. But as time goes on, you get to understand, as you improve in your design journey, you start to understand that each typography you use has a message it's passing across. When you want to use sans serif, you know that you are using sans serif because of a particular reason. If you are using serif font, you know that this serif font is passing across a particular message. So let's be intentional when we are using the typography, when you are using your colors, and when you are using backgrounds, images. Be intentional when you use that. So, and I made a real world case study for us. You can look at it before. It says the three pillars of good design, and you can look at the after. So if you notice these two designs, obviously you find out that, what's it called? This the one at the left hand side is, you can really find it hard to read. Everything is as if it's just put together. There's no clarity. The colors was just used, and then you have everything. There's no white space. Everything is just there. Of course, there are a little bit of hierarchy, but nevertheless, everything is just getting attention. But if you look at the design, which is the after the redesigning of the one on the left hand side, you can see that it is clear. So the moment you are seeing this design, you see the three pillars of good design. And then after that, you come down. So you can even say that the imagery, once you are about to come down, you look at the three pillars. You understand that this typography, the message is also passing across same message as the image is used. Then you have the pillar one, you have the pillar two, you have the pillar three, and then you now come down to the body text, which now reads all what you need to know about creating good designs. So that is what the old steps is all about. Understand what and what's it called, what purpose the design is meant for. You give the designs clarity. You understand. Then you now come back to which emotions you want to pass across. You look at the use of my brown. I just want to evoke that feeling of ancient, something that depicts pillar, something that can last forever. Don't something that when you know, in terms of now talking about three pillars of good design, when you know it, you can be able to know that you are making design that can stand the test of time, that can be able to, when people look at it, it's, and what's it called, can be able to be easily understood by the audience that you are sending the message across to. So you have to know that all these things works together as one when you are making your design. The image you use, I use the background of maybe ancient background. You understand that depicts all those Roman feel. You look at it like this thing is ancient, so that means that these are principles that probably are told are untold, that of how you can be able to make a good design. So those things evoke one message as what you have in the design. So we have so we're going to be wrapping up on the recap of all what we've said on on the three pillars of design. So the three pillars, which is clarity, purpose, and emotion. Once you are able to understand all these three pillars, you are good to go. When I mean you are good to go, means that you've set your foot on the right path to be able to make sure that, even as much as, let's say for instance, you have people that you admire, that they are making wonderful design, they are making good designs, and then you admire their works, right? So there's a part in the Bible that says that if, and what's it called, if the foundation is spoilt, what shall the righteous do? So if you are setting yourself in, you want to put the right foot forward in terms of saying, okay, you are looking towards becoming this kind of person, you are looking towards, even not becoming, getting better, to be able to understand what thought process goes through this person's mind in order to be able to create this design. Unconsciously, when you know all these things, right, when you know the clarity, you know the purpose, you know the emotion, you set yourself in a good place to be able to know that you are doing some things right. You understand? You might not be there yet into where you initially want to know, but you know that you've set your foot on the right foundation. you've built your design journey on understanding what really a design is, that goes beyond the aesthetics of the design, that goes beyond the just beautifying the design, that goes beyond just making the design looks nice. You understand that your designs that you are sending out, be it church flyers, be it and corporate flyers, you are making sure that the design is passing across the right message to the right audience. Do you understand? You are making a design that is talking about children, and then you are using images of adults. Of course, the text says children, but the images you are using does not correspond with the what's it called, with the theme or with the title of what you are making. So your design has to be clear, there has to be purpose in it, and there has to be emotion, which when you bring everything together, you know that you are taking the right foot on your path to becoming a better and a great designer. So just put in mind clarity, purpose, and emotion. So these three things are very, very important for you to know in order to be able to get yourself in the right place that you wish to be in your design journey. So that will be all for now. That will be end of the class. But as time goes on, we are going to be having our next class, which is going to follow this. So, because we have to build this foundation so that we can be able to know that when we are making some design, you know why the actions are being taken. You know why the person is taking some things. The person is scaling down some images, reducing some text. Without you being told, you understand the person is trying to pass across a message. So when you have the right foundation, then you know that every other thing that we're going to be doing in the Patience Academy, right, is going to be towards bringing all these things together. Because the following class might be how you now need to create a design. Now you know what makes a good design. Then how, the question that will come to your mind is, how can I be able to now create a design? So the following classes are not going to be just theoretical based. It's going to be practical. So this is when we jump into our design software, and then we work together in order to be able to create all those best designs that you've seen out there. You've imagined how you can be able to create such. So the following classes are going to be really, really exciting, because it's going to be a part where you have to we have to come together, brainstorm, look at a design together, and we can be able to talk about it on how can I be able to achieve this design, how can I be able to work on this design, and then we'll work together as a team, and then you see how, or probably what the thought process of the designer has been in order to achieve that, and what elements of design you can be able to bring together to achieve that. We go together into the research, we go together into the brainstorming, we go together into the conceptualization, and we go together into putting all these things together to be able to tell a story. So the following class are going to be what's it called, very exciting, and I'm sure you don't want to miss this. If you haven't subscribed yet, this is a good time for you to subscribe, and also turn on the notification bell so that you don't miss any updates that comes after the class. Thank you all for joining. See you all in our next class next week. Thank you all.